What's up, dads? Welcome back to the Fit Dad Club podcast. You're here with Jason Barrett, and today what I want to talk about is three key things that you need to do if you want these results long term. If you're looking to drop a bit of weight, if you're looking to put on a bit of muscle, if you're looking to get fit, get in shape, get flexible, whatever being a fit dad means to you, there's three key things that you need to apply and you need to have if you want to keep the results for beyond whatever 10, 12, 6-month challenge, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to have these three things. So before we get into it, would love it if you have any topics or anything that you would love me and Trav to discuss, send it to us in a DM, send us a message, send us an email. We're happy to cover it. And don't forget to leave the rating and review of a 5-star on the podcast if you enjoyed everything. And just let us know what we can do to continue to help. So these three things are just three sort of elements of your mindset that you need to have to keep the results from now until the end of your life, right? And number one is going to come at no surprise to anyone, which is be consistent. If you want these results for the rest of your life, there needs to be an element of consistency. You may not go to the gym 5 times a week. You may not do crazy intense training programs for the rest of your life, but there needs to be an element of consistency of something that you do all the time. And that might be your walking. That might be instilling in yourself and your family a habit of going for a morning walk or an afternoon walk when you finish work to keep the body moving, to keep the blood flowing, and having that sort of daily step target as something that you do constantly aim for. Now, the daily step target itself may change. We'll talk about that in a bit, but you're still hitting something. You're still being consistent. Your meals are consistent. You're not varying them wildly. You're not skipping breakfast for 3 days and then having some breakfast and then going out to lunch and not knowing what to order. So you order the fried chicken burger. It's like you have consistency within your life. And consistency, for most of us, it looks like 80% of the time. What do you do 80% of the time? Because that is enough of a chunk that leads you towards what you want, that leads you towards your goal. If you spend 80% of the time on track, yeah, sometimes the 20% will slow things down, but 80% of the time on track is enough to keep you moving in the right direction. It's enough to maintain your results. When you're 50-50, you're 50% of the time you're on track, 50% of the time you're off the wagon. You're not going to do enough work in that 50% on track to make up for the off track time. So if 80% of the time in your life, you can be consistent with whatever the habits are for you, whatever the goal is for you, 80% of the time you're consistent with your stretching or your flexibility work or your strength training or your running, you'll get there and you will maintain that result. Same thing with your food. It's not 100% strict for the rest of your life. It is just how consistent can you be? So number one is you've got to be consistent. Number two is you have to be flexible, right? And it kind of is a little bit contradictory towards being consistent, but let me explain. Being flexible is not the same as just having excuses. Being flexible isn't, I'm going to have some cake because it's my son's birthday, and then I'm going to have this, and I'm going to have that, and blah, 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 and continuing to make excuses and to go down the wrong path and to turn that 80% into something more like 50%. You have to have the ability to change your plan as needed. Let's say something happens and you can't be as consistent as you want to be. That might be your step count, right? Like we talked about, if you can't hit 10,000 steps a day, being flexible in that and not seeing not hitting 10,000 steps as a failure, seeing it as, shit, this is just something I need to pivot. I need to change this direction and I need to do something differently. That's all it ends up needing to be. It doesn't have to be a massive deal where now that you can't train, let's say you have an injury, right? Or let's say you get sick for a little while. Let's say you get like COVID and you're out for like 2 weeks and it takes you a little while to get back in and you can't quite do the same training and it kind of makes you go, oh, fuck it, right? These are the moments where we need to be flexible. When you've got social events, when you've got travel, when you've got, stuff going on at home, when you've got holidays, you need to be able to be flexible. When you've got stuff going on at work, you need to be able to be flexible. Right? So you need to be able to pivot from those plans because some people, they work really well when it's a rigid plan. And you've got your meal plan, and you've got at 4 p.m. I knock off, and at 4:30 p.m. I'm in the gym, at 5:30 p.m. I leave the gym, at 5:45 I'm home, blah, 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 blah. And that's all well and good when it works out, but we've all got kids. It doesn't always work that way. It never works that way. The rigidity is fragile, right? Being too rigid means that any stress put on the system will cause it to break. So we need to be able to be flexible in our approach. What does that mean? That means that if you are fucking gung-ho on the carnivore diet and that's the way that you're doing it and you're getting results on it, great, amazing, awesome. Your doctor comes to you and says, all right, well, you've got really high cholesterol or you've got some other issues that are going on or your kidneys can't handle that amount of protein. You might then have to change your approach, or there might be something else that happens that means that you need to change your approach in what you're doing. You need to have the ability to pivot, to be flexible in how you do things, whether that's your gym shutting down and you need to then get a home gym, you move further away and there's not a local gym near you that has, the equipment and the stuff that you like. It's not an all or nothing approach. Flexibility allows you to scale your approach based on what's going on in your life. You might have periods where it's just too busy and there's too much shit happening. So you need to be able to be flexible. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to scale things up and down as necessary, still in pursuit of your goals. You need to have the ability to be flexible because rigidity is fragile, but flexibility is anti-fragile. It's like a rubber versus glass, right? Glass is pretty strong, right? But you put too much pressure on it and it shatters. Whereas rubber bounces right back. It can squeeze and it can bounce right back. So focus on being anti-fragile, as we spoke about. Focus on being a person who is able to be consistent and flexible. These two actually do go quite hand in hand, right? If you're flexible, then you're able to be consistent on some level, right? Whether that's, you're scaling down your step goal because you need to, you're scaling down your training because you need to, you're modifying your food because you need to, if you've got a pregnant wife with cravings and, she doesn't want the smell of your chicken breast anymore, so you've got to cook a different food. These are the things we've got to be flexible in, right? We've got to be willing to make changes. And finally, number 3 is you've got to be driven. And when I say driven, you don't got to be fucking David Goggins out there running with 2 broken knees just because you can. When I say being driven, it means you've got to have a why. You've got to have a motivation. You've got to have a sense of purpose about why you're doing this. You've got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror every day and go, this is why I'm doing this. You look at your kids, you go, this is why I'm doing this. Because you lose sight of that, the rest of it falls apart. It's a hell of a lot easier to be consistent and flexible in your goals when you're driven. And you're driven by doing this for your kids, by doing this for your grandkids, by setting that example, by showing them what kind of man you want your sons to be, by showing them what kind of man you want your daughters to grow up and marry, or you just even the type of person you want your daughters to be. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you set the example. What matters is that is why you're doing it. You're setting an example. You've got the energy to play and run around with them, especially those of us with young kids. Like, they only give a shit about playing with you for so long. After there's going to come a certain point, and I'm sure plenty of dads listening to this have hit this point, where your kids don't really want to play with you. They're not wanting you to sit down on the mat with them and play characters or play cars or whatever. They want to play with their friends. They want to go out and do other things. And you only have that time for a little while. So don't let that time be exhausted. Don't let that time be, oh, dad's got a sore back and sore hips and sore knees because I haven't been looking after myself. Let that time be energetic and playful and fun, where you can just really get into things with them, especially coming into summer, right? This is all super important stuff, but you have to have that reason why. And don't come to us, don't book a call with us and have a chat with us and tell me that you're so motivated by your kids and wanting to spend time with them and do stuff with them, and then at the slightest hurdle you give up, because that tells me that it's never really been that important to you, or it tells me that your doubts are more important to you than that potential goal. The doubts that you'll ever make it happen because it's never worked for you before in the past or whatever it is. But this is where flexibility comes in. Flexibility allows you to still be determined, right, and to be driven towards what you want. Because it's not about a strict plan. It's about finding what works for you. It's about finding that way. But the why and the drive for you to be that best version of yourself for your kids, fundamentally, that is the ultimate necessity. If you have that, you'll figure out the rest. If it's a necessity enough, you'll figure out the rest. And let the necessity be because you want to be fit for your kids, not because if you don't do this, you won't be around long enough for your kids, right? Because that's a big wake-up call that you don't want to have. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about on this podcast today. Let us know if there's any topics you'd love us to cover. And as always, appreciate you for listening. Cheers.